Hi there, I'm Molly,
And I'm Jamie. We're the owners of Hired Hand Software.
and this is Season 6 of our From the Pasture podcast. For more than 15 years, we've been helping breeders promote their pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use, animal management-driven website software.
Each week, we bring you stories from the pasture, breeding philosophies, ranch traditions, cattle knowledge, and conversation with folks using Hired Hand to power their livestock marketing.
So settle in for today's episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand.
Today's episode is a really meaningful one because we're talking with a family who didn't just start a ranch, they brought one back to life. We're joined by Guy and Charlotte Cote of Cote Cattle Company, located in Granby, Massachusetts. Their farm has been part of Charlotte's family since 1940s when her grandparents first established it. For many years, the land sat quiet, no barns, no animals, until Guy and Charlotte decided to bring it back, starting small and growing it into the full-time operation it is today. They're registered Texas Longhorn breeders, Longhorn beef producers, passionate advocates for knowing where your food comes from, and instrumental leaders in building the New England Longhorn community. Guy and Charlotte, welcome to the podcast. Thanks.
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself? So for those listeners just discovering you for the first time, can you walk us through the story of this farm from its roots in the 40s to sitting empty for years, and then ultimately you all bringing it back to life in 2015?
So my grandparents ran this as a full cattle operation, and through the years, my father was a diesel mechanic, and he also had a passion for farming. But with 5 kids, farming wasn't exactly going to pay the bills and such, so he stopped doing it more of a full-time thing and transitions to being more of a full-time diesel mechanic and an avid NASCAR fan. He always kept a couple of animals, but as he got into his probably 60s, his body started failing him. And while he still wanted to do all of these things, he didn't have the full abilities to do so. So we were actually sitting at this table for Thanksgiving dinner, and right out the window, you can see fields and such. I said, "Dad, wouldn't it be amazing to put cows back out there?" And he's like, "I'll never forget it." Because he's like, "Kid, do you know how much work that is? You're crazy." And then a week or so later, and guys were buying cows. And it was important to me that I knew where the beef that we were eating came from. We were going to have beef on our table. That's just part of who we are. And I love cooking, and it just made sense to start doing this. So we started with Angus and Hereford, and then the guy loved the Longhorns. And believe it or not, in Massachusetts, we went even further east to get our first Texas Longhorns. We bought them out of Rhode Island, and they were 2 heifers. And we quickly realized they were the prettiest ones in the field, the easiest to take care of, and they were thriving. So we just transitioned out of Hereford and Angus and strictly into Texas Longhorns, and we love it. And our goal has been to bring the Texas Longhorn herds in this area up to being the best that they can, getting as many breeders involved in it that we can, and teaching people whatever we've learned in our process. And we met some of our goals in the first few years. I think we made traditional mistakes. We bought cows because they were pretty. They had a nice color and whatnot. And I don't think we have any of our original cows anymore. We transitioned to different pedigrees and different lines and such. And then we did our first fraternity last year, which was a goal. As soon as we went to the first fraternities and met people, we loved it. And we knew that if we really wanted people to get involved in the breed, we needed to get them to come to some of these shows. And hard ask for people to get them out of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, and Connecticut to get them to drive to the closest, which is like 8 hours. So we brought it up here, and we do the branding party too. So we've created an environment for people to learn about Longhorns and get involved in it and such. And I think we've enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it was important to us to try to grow the breed in our area. We've been involved now for quite a bit, and we are heavily involved. I would say we do a lot of traveling. We go to a lot of the shows and sales, and we've both been involved with the TLBA and the ITLA and different committees and things over the years. So it was important to us to try to grow the breed in our area. And we've done that to the point where last year we were able to hold our first maturity here, and it was I think it was a good success. We had a great time, so we're happy for that, and hoping to just kind of keep that moving forward.
Well, and it definitely takes people, individuals like yourselves, to be that, I guess, champion for the Longhorn industry in those parts of the country where Longhorns aren't. There's not a lot of them. So I'm sure everyone in your area also appreciates the work that you're putting in to build that sense of community for everyone around you. So, Charlotte, when you were younger and your family had Angus, were you actively involved then or not?
I think I was 7 years old. It was November, and the barn was hit by lightning. So the time that I had with my family in farming was really very young age, and it wasn't anything like what we do now. I always loved it and was always involved on a smaller scale with whatever my dad had, whatever he wanted to do. But nothing like this, absolutely nothing like this. And so we had a lot of firsts for sure, with just working the cows and all kinds of things. Guy's family had horses growing up, so I feel like he honestly had more of a farming experience than I did.
All right, Guy, when she was like, I think I want to get some cows and put them in the yard, what was your initial thought?
I was excited. We're just super active people, and we're not ones to kind of sit home and sit on the couch and watch TV. So we've always got something going on, whether it's a project or, for the last 8 years, I've been building fences and putting up barns and fixing things, and that's what I enjoy doing. So it wasn't a problem for me at all. I was excited about it, and we started small, and we fenced off a first area with the first field, and I've been working hard to just kind of get the grass to come back, and fertilizing and reseeding everything, and putting lime down and all that, and just getting better and better every year. And so yeah, it's been exciting.
So from those early years when you first started, how did that phase shape the farm that you have today? Like, I know you talked about some of your mistakes in building fences and whatnot.
Yeah, I think we just we learned a lot from the people we've met throughout the industry, and every time we travel, we try to make the point to go visit people's ranches and see what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And I think we really learned a lot from that. When we set up we kind of did it temporarily a couple of times because I wanted to sort of try out some different ideas, and through trial and error, we figured out a system that really worked well for us, and then kind of permanently put everything together, and it's worked great. So I think it's just been a lot of research, a lot of visiting people, and just talking with everybody, and the people in the industry have been great. Everybody is super friendly and helps each other out. So I think that helped get us going, and we sort of want to pass that along too. As new breeders come in, we always like to take them and teach them everything we can, and make it as easy for them as we can to get started.
So at what point did it shift from hobby farm to the full-time operation of like, oh boy, this is like really happening, we did this?
It's funny because we both worked full-time jobs in addition to doing this. And that's the first thing everybody says when they come visit our place is like, wait a minute, you guys both work full-time and do this on top of it? How do you do that? And the answer is always, I don't know. We just figure it out.
So are your make be ultra efficient? Like we don't have the time to mess around. So it has to be really efficient, and like pretty much every corner of the field has a gate in it, and everything leads to the one gate. The story of the vet came here, and he's like, when you come here in the summertime, all the cows are laying up on the hillside looking like at the field and at the barn, and you just see a bunch of heads and horns sticking out. And the vet, he's like, ready to hop over the fence. He's like, all right, I can help you get them. And I'm like, no, we don't have to chase them. Like, the only spot that our cows get a treat is in the holding pen. So if I just force them in the buckets, the whole herd comes running to us, and then we just shut gates behind them, and it had to be that way. So one of us is here to help, the other one has to be able to do everything. And I think our most time-consuming thing now is watering.
Yeah. Or,
Because it
well, in the
takes
wintertime, this time of year, haying too, putting out hay, but the summertime's a little bit easier because we've got the grass seed, so it's more watering, and we kind of put wells in different areas to make it as efficient as we can. I make my rounds in the morning before I hit to work, checking on everybody and doing whatever needs to be done then, and then when I get home, I'll spend whatever it takes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours out back, just getting everything done, and then of course we get into summertime and it's haying season, so we can making as much hay as we can. So it's a lot, but it's fun. It's the sort of work that I really love to do. I think we kind of work well together because her strengths are sort of on the marketing side and talking to people and everything like that. And more of I like to go out back and do the physical work, and but we can both help each other out. She'll jump in the tractor and go make hay with me or whatever it takes.
Are the kids involved? Do they like to help you out?
Yeah, somewhat. The kids are all kind of do their own thing. Some of them are a little older and they're not on their own and doing their own thing, working full time. And the two left at home are students, and they help out as much as they can. But it's mainly us that do
Yeah.
everything.
Okay, so Charlotte, you had talked about your dad, how his younger life was a big driving force behind you all getting cows and that type of thing. Can you share what it meant to him to have you want to get cattle again on the very farm where he once had them?
Yeah, I think it was huge. So my father was like a guy's guy. He was like a friend to everybody, and definitely not a weak person by any stretch of the imagination, but his emotions would certainly get the best of him. And he would always kind of reminisce about how much his father would be proud of him and proud of this going on and such. And I never got to meet my grandfather. So I only got to hear about him through my dad. I really enjoyed just the idea of bringing this back, and the idea that they're, happy to see it thriving and still going. My dad would always say to me that he knows I'll never sell the farm and do it whatever I can to keep it going. That meant a lot to me. I know that he put a lot of trust in me. He was the only boy in the family. He had, his sister my father was adopted. His biological father died when he was 5 years old, and Arthur Chartier was married my grandmother, and then my father. So that's my last name. My father's last name was Chartier, but not at birth. And I think it's just amazing that he ended up with this farm and he took so much pride in it and such. And this was his adopted father, and he had such a bond with his adopted father, which he always called dad. It was nothing less. I love that we're able to still keep this going. And in my imagination, I feel like they're all proud of what we're doing. We were building, and I know this drives him bonkers because he was building fence because I got distracted because in the trees there were all the barbed wire fencing from that must have been put there 50 years ago, but the trees had all grown over the barbed wire. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then I called my aunt to talk to her about it and such, and he just said,
That's funny. Was he there to help you kind of plan out how to situate the different pens and where to build fence and that kind of thing? Did he give you some input?
He saw our pasture that's up top of the road, and then our first pasture out back. And then we talked a lot about building the barn and then the other additional pasture so that we could start rotational grazing. But he only got to see the first field, and he only got to see the first two longhorns.
When we first got the cows, like she was talking about, his health wasn't the greatest, but he was super excited to see everything kind of come together. He had tractors that he'd never gotten rid of, and him and I would go out and we would make hay, and he loved it. He wouldn't be able to do a lot, but he'd just sit there and watch. And if something went wrong, he would kind of, he was a mechanic, so he would spring into action and be able to help fix whatever it was that broke. But he'd come over every Sunday morning. He'd have coffee, and we'd sit here and come in and say, "Oh, open up that Craigslist thing. Let's see what we can find." And we surf through Craigslist and try to find tractors or anything to do with haying or farming or cows. And we were always on some sort of an adventure together. And towards the end, when he wasn't well, he would. I remember one time he got back up on the tractor, even though Charlotte wasn't too happy about it. It was hot, really hot out, and he wanted to go cut hay. So we got him all set up, put him on the tractor, and off he went. And he had a big smile on his face that he was out there doing his thing, running his tractor, cutting hay. So it was really good.
Yeah, doing his thing, but then also doing his thing, but and enjoying it with one of his kids. So I'm sure that was a pretty fantastic moment for him.
And the next time I was doing hay so God had to do something and he couldn't do hay. And there was that perfect opportunity of like, these are the 3 days it should get done. And I'm like, well, I'll just do it. And he's like, I want you out there by yourself. I'm like, oh no, my dad and your dad, they'll both be there. So, and we both like these guys that know absolutely everything and no one's telling them. So it's kind of funny because I went and did like the first row of hay and it was the square bales and the baling twine wasn't matching on both sides. So the bales were all lopsided and it kept breaking string. So both of them are telling me what to do. Both are saying something different and they're telling me how to do this and that and whatnot. And guy is and was older than my father. Anyway, they're both standing over both sides of the baler telling me what has to be done and this is wrong and whatnot. But I climbed underneath the baler and there was literally a diagram that I'm looking up at that's telling me what to do. So I think they both thought that they were right and both told me what to do. And I'm just like, let them run with it.
Let them run with it. And you're reading the directions and fixing it on your own, right?
I'm like, you guys did great. Thanks. That was helpful.
So what drew you, when you were out of all of the cattle out there, what drew you specifically to Texas Longhorns?
For me, I don't know. It's just I've always been intrigued by them. We just don't. We never had any around here. You didn't see them around here. And to be totally honest, I wasn't even sure because I know so little about them, and I knew them being familiar with them being down south in Texas. But I wasn't sure that they would even be able to survive and thrive up in the northern climate. But we saw a couple on one of the Sunday mornings sitting here going through Craigslist. We saw some for sale in Rhode Island and took a drive down, and I thought they were gorgeous. They'd just been weaned, little 6-month-old heifers, but we bought them, and it was like she said, within the next year they just blossomed into these beautiful animals, and we quickly discovered they were the easiest ones to keep. They weren't jumping fences, they weren't getting sick, they weren't getting involved with a lot of the other things the other ones did, and we slowly transitioned the whole herd over. I just think they're really unique animals, and we just fell in love with the breed.
The person that you originally bought your first Longhorns from, are they still active? Do they still have Longhorns?
No. So they weren't registered. I guess they were from a registered herd, and they were very. It was very small. I think she was moving, and she only had like 6 of them or something like that. We ended up buying a couple of them. But no, there wasn't at the time. There wasn't many Longhorns at all around here. There's a lot more now.
Yeah.
And hopefully more in the future.
And my father was like, let's go get a bull for a guy so he can breed those Longhorns. And he started looking on Craigslist. And him looking on Craigslist meant like I would type it, find it, and be like, here, Dad, check this one out. Because technology was not his thing. So we find a bull. It says like a 6-month-old bull calf in
somewhere in Pennsylvania,
something like that, in $600. And we're like, this is great. So I call the guy, leave a message, no call back. And my father, like when he wanted to do something, like he decided we're doing it, and like now we're doing it. There's no lag time at all. And so this person had not called me back. And like the sad part is that was on Thursday. And then my dad had passed on Tuesday. Like it went that. And then a couple of days later, and after my father's services, I get a phone call, and it ended up being Kevin Vaughn. We didn't know them at all, but this is how we ended up knowing them. So Kevin says, you gave me a call, and I was sorry, I wasn't feeling good. I'm just getting back to you. And I start telling him the story. And like if you've met Kevin Vaughn, Kevin is definitely a big guy and such. And I'm on the phone with him as a total stranger, and I'm crying like a 2-year-old. Like, I need this bull. It doesn't matter. That bull could have had like 4 tails and 6 eyeballs. It didn't matter. We wanted that bull. Yeah, because this is the one we got. We jump into the truck and go to pick that up in January, and brought him here, and like that was super emotional. And I think the same, well, it's a similar experience whenever you bring a longhorn home and it gets off the trailer and it's in your field. That's amazing, but that one was extra special. And now I kind of laugh at that because he definitely was not a herd sire material. But at that moment in time, he was like the best thing on the planet. And it introduced us to people who had registered longhorns. And then the next thing we knew, we were going to Cherry Blossom and the Fall Classic. That was the closest show to us. And we've had fun doing that.
So did you attend? So that was in 2015, 2016?
I think that
17 probably.
No,
17?
that was after my father.
Right.
And that's when you got the registered Texas Longhorns. And did that of April, I guess it would have been of 18. Is that when you attended the Cherry Blossom for the first time?
Yeah.
And was that the first time, Guy, you got called out for leaving during bidding?
No, that happened after. I think we became regulars, and then I met, it was probably 2019 or so when the bathroom and Charlotte bought a cow.
Charlotte bought a cow. Yeah, and you guys can never live that down now.
No, I also had just gotten a new car, and I was like, well, we're not buying anything, so let's just take my new car. It would be so much fun. Good idea. So we go down there, and I remember we bought Candy Crush and Katrina, and we were sitting up in the bleachers, and I had my arm around him, and I really liked Candy Crush a lot, and so I was just lifting my finger on his shoulder, and Jay was accepting the bids. So I was fine. No one even knew that I bought this cow. And then the next one was a Dale Metz cow, and Dale comes out of the wheat stands to go.
I thought somebody behind us was bidding.
He's like, "Hey, Jay, who just?" Jay pointed right at me. I'm like, "Oh shoot!" I laugh at that story still because Jay will accept the bid very easily, and Dale Metz got me called out on that. And then so Guy the truck and show them on the weekend to get the cows that we bought.
It's funny. So you had no idea really that you purchased that first cow from there. You got to watch out for Jay, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, she knew. I just didn't know.
That's funny. That's funny.
But it was fun. And yes, he does get picked on for going to the bathroom. But then he tries to play it to his advantage, and he's like, "Oh, I really like this cow, so I'm going to go to the bathroom while she's out here."
Oh, that's funny. We won't let that secret out. Well, we'll keep that on the DL so nobody else knows your trick.
Yeah, if Guy's leaving, he probably likes the next cow coming up.
Yep.
Funny. So what does success look like for you when it comes to your breeding program now that you've had Longhorns for over about 10-ish years? Thinking about hosting your own online sale?
With Hired Hand Live, you can run a standalone internet auction right from your ranch. No travel, no weather concerns, no space limitations.
You have the animals? We handle the technology.
It's stress-free, secure, and designed for livestock breeders.
Start your own sale at hiredhandlive.com.
I think for us, just improving our herd, improving the genetics and the overall package of the animals that we are producing. We love to compete for charities, so it's always great that we have something that's competitive and we can take and have it placed consistently. And that just, I think, shows that we're making strides in our program. Everything kind of takes time. The decisions we make today about who we're going to breed, we don't see the results of that for years to come. So it's a process. I really enjoy studying the different lines, the pedigrees, figuring out who to breed to who. Last year we went to 2 shows. We had I think we had 2 heifers that made the finals, so that was a good feeling to see that they made it into the finals. And we'll be back again this year with a more and see where we go. We had a great year last year as far as heifer to bull ratio, and we have a lot of great colorful heifers on the ground, and they're young still, so we'll see what they go up and do.
So what are some of the things you look for when you're planning your breeding for like next year and the year after?
I'd say we look at our cows and we kind of split them up into, how can we improve on any of the flaws that they might have, what bulls would match up best with them, and we'll do some AI work, and if we run 2 or 3 bulls, we have a fairly small herd, but we'll probably use 2 or 3, maybe 4 bulls throughout the year for breeding. In addition to that, and our season for breeding, we turn the bulls out on July 1st, and try to leave them out no longer than maybe into January, because we just don't want to have the winter. We don't want to be calving this time of year. It's been a really brutal winter, and luckily this year we didn't get any winter babies. We've run into that a little bit in the past because we might buy something from down south that was bred and have to deal with it, but we like to plan better and not have to deal with that. And
are there any of your breeding from this last year that you're most excited for this spring?
Yeah, we have a bull, Ambro. He's a higher ground son. He's black and white. He's young. He on his 3rd birthday, he just turned 3, and he was, I think, 89.25 inches tip to tip. He won the bronze last year at the Horn Showcase, so we're really excited about him. I love the production of higher ground. He's done a lot of great things, a lot of horn movement in his offspring, and Ambro seems to be. We have a handful of calves from him last year, and we're really excited about the way they look at this point. And we put the bulk of our herd to him again last year, so this coming season in 26 we'll have a lot of Ambro babies coming again.
What is the first maturity you're going to go to this year?
Our bluegrass, and then cherry blossom the following week.
Nice. Well, let's shift our focus and we'll talk about your beef program, because I know you've mentioned how important it is for you to know where your beef came from. Why is it important for you to raise beef for consumers and not just cattle for the ring or for the pasture?
I often say this to people, your pastures are like a parking lot, and you can only park so many cars in a parking lot. So I can only put so many cows in these fields, and if I have a field or a parking lot where I can put 20 cars, how awesome those cars are, there's going to be a bottom. And I think it's easier for people to recognize that with cars than it is in their own cows. And I'm totally guilty of that too. Like it's hard to criticize your own cows. Funny story, I sat next to someone at the bluegrass sale one year, and I was sitting next to them at the bull futurity, and this was our first time bringing a bull to a futurity. And I sat next to this breeder, which is a very good breeder. Their name is on a lot of stuff, and they've been in it for a long time. And she had no idea who I was. And when my bull came out, she's like, "Oh, now this one here is not even a bull. That doesn't even have this characteristic or that one. The horn direction's wrong. The color's off." I'm like, oh my God. But it was such good. It was so good to hear that raw advice from somebody. And I won't forget it. And I've actually talked to this breeder and told him, and I laugh about the story today. I wasn't insulted. I was so thankful too, because we learned so much that I needed to learn. But going back to your question, we have to always keep our numbers in check. Otherwise, our fields are going to be destroyed, and we're not going to be able to, we're going to manage the herd and always put our lower end stuff into the beef program. Almost all of our steers go into our beef program if we're not selling them at a younger age to another farm. It's a significant amount of cash flow for us in the business, because up here, there's not a lot of Texas Longhorn beef, and I use that to my advantage in marketing and letting people know the difference between the beef. I ask them to try a burger before I ask them to try a steak, because I think that the burgers themselves taste them. And just the quality, it's so good. And guess growing it just for ourselves would be one thing, but our numbers have outgrown that. And we've been able to utilize the money to help us with improving the herd or anything on the farm that we need to do.
So when you're talking to those people about Longhorn beef specifically, is it important for them to also understand how you raise your cattle, like what you feed them and that type of thing?
So I think so. I think that usually within the first few questions, one of them is what are you feeding them? To explain to people that they don't have a lot of fat in them, but fat is where the flavor is. So even though it's a smaller amount of fat, I truly believe that the flavor is phenomenal. My first year in this to build up our beef program, I spent the first couple years doing farmers markets, not in the summertime, but in the winter. We have a winter's farmers market that is in the mall next to us, and they take the whole center of the mall and line it up with all the farming tables. So it's nice. It doesn't matter how bad the weather might be outside. They have this spot every Saturday morning you can go, and it's an indoor farmers market. It's great. When I went to sign up for this, the woman running it said, you're going to have to work really hard. We have 3 people selling Angus already, and nobody knows the Longhorn beef. And like, okay. I put pictures of our Longhorns. I put what looked like gift boxes of beef. I put our spices out, and then one of the skulls from Longhorns. And when people came by, I wasn't like, hey, nice weather, or how are you today? I just asked them, like, have you ever had Longhorn beef? And they either said yes, no, or I went to Longhorn Steakhouse before. Like, yeah, they're like, I don't remember. I'm like, no, if you tried it, you would remember. And I feel enough reason to not have to do the farmer's market anymore. And if someone calls and says, I have all this beef, I can't sell it, where do you get your customers? That's exactly what I think anybody should do if they're trying to build up their beef program. Just get out there and talk to people about it. And you might not a whole cow on day one, but these will be your repeat customers. And I think there's more money in the repeat customers that buy smaller packages than the whole cow. But my favorite is if we take 6 to the butcher, I like to have them already sold and the people here waiting to pick them up out of the freezer van, so we don't even have to store it. Because the second it goes into your freezer, the profit margin starts to sink, because now you're paying to keep this cold. And I feel like that, to me, bothers me. I don't want there to be something we're just paying for it to stay cold. It needs to be sold.
Do you sell a variety of different cuts, or is it mainly ground beef?
No, we do sell a variety. We oxtail and the tongue. Like, some people don't get those. I can sell all of those. That I think you just have to find the right group of people who want to cook that. And we do short ribs and steaks and roast, stew beef. We've consistently done all of it. And I've had a couple where the steaks weren't awesome, but I think you learn, and now everything that we have has been born and raised here. So I feel like we can make better decisions.
Some of the strongest advocates for the Texas Longhorn breed aren't breeders yet. They're young people who already love these cattle.
For 30 years, the Longhorn Project has given students a chance to raise, care for, and show Texas Longhorns, while also learning agriculture, business, leadership, and responsibility.
It's a program that builds confidence, character, and the next generation of cattlemen and cattlewomen.
As they celebrate 30 years in 2026, learn how you can support their mission or get involved at thelonghornproject.com.
Well, you talk about feeding and grazing. Your cattle rotate through rotational grazing through, I think you said, if I counted right, maybe 5 different pastures, roughly?
We have 4 main pastures, and yes, and a couple of small on the farm. We lease a couple of pastures as well.
What challenges do you have being where you're located with the winters and that type of thing while doing rotational grazing? Do you have any pointers or any tips for people?
The biggest challenges here really are with the weather. It's an unknown. If you hit a drought and your grass dries up, then you're haying a lot earlier than expected. Weather in general. If not just the hay, but the grass in the fields, and being careful not to overgraze, and making sure that you're bouncing them, back and forth between pastures before they overeat it. And too much rain can be detrimental as well. If it gets too muddy, and we don't have that big a problem as others. Our fields are pretty good to drain off, but yeah, I think it's just really the weather is the biggest thing.
For those people who may not be familiar with rotational grazing, and when you say overeat it, what does that mean? Do you look at the height of the grass? Do you look at the density? What do you look for?
Both, mostly the height. You don't want them to eat it down too low, and the grass will just have a really tough time recovering from that and growing back. So we'll usually pull them out of the field before they get to that point where it's too low, and put them into a new field and let that field grow again for several weeks or a month or whatever it takes before that regrows, and then we can turn them back out into that one again. So keeping your numbers, your ratio of your cows to acreage ratio is important, because if you have too many cows for your land, it's really hard to keep up on going to get food.
What is the cow to land ratio where you are?
So we're fortunate. We have really good grass in this part of the country, and we can run 2 cow-calf pairs per acre, and not a lot of other parts of the country can do that. I know there's parts of Texas that probably running 1 cow-calf pair per 20 acres. So we're fortunate that we have good grass. We just have a short season, so that's a we usually can't let them out on the grass until mid-May, and then depending on the year, maybe they have grass through October. We're usually probably, by November, we're usually haying again. So the summer.
So for those people who live close to you, and have the same environment, same soil, is there a grass that you would recommend that they grow? Because I know some grow better in different areas.
Yeah, we use a pasture mix, so we don't really plant just one thing. It's like a Timothy, alfalfa, clover, orchard grass, brome. We have a mix of everything. I buy the seed like that, and that way, if you have certain conditions, the grasses aren't thriving, the other ones in that blend will. So it's a good balance to carry it through.
I know Charlotte had mentioned earlier when we were talking, and she had said last year there was 17 Saturdays where it just rained, and you couldn't get out, you couldn't do things. When it rains like that and you're doing rotational grazing, does all of that rain have an effect on the cows in the pasture and how long that they're there, and foot or hoof health and that type of thing?
Yeah, like I said, we're fortunate because we don't have a lot of mud. Our fields drain pretty quickly where the cows are. The bigger problem with the rain is getting our hay in. Last year was difficult because the whole first half of the year was extremely wet, and we're lucky that if I can't get the hay dried, we can wrap it and make baleage. But then after August 1st, with all the rain we had gotten, we had just finished our first cutting, and then it stopped raining, and it didn't rain again for a couple of months, and the second cutting just didn't grow. So there's always a challenge whether, and then we ended up, having to buy some hay at the end of the year because we weren't able to get through.
So again, earlier when Charlotte and I were talking, she was talking about this time of year specifically, and maybe this year specifically, it's been so cold for so long. She was talking about how you are up at 5 a.m. going out checking water and everything like that. What does a typical day-to-day life look for the two of you, since you also have full-time jobs?
Yeah, so this time of year, it's tough. It's been a really tough winter, with the extreme cold temperatures. We'll normally get below zero occasionally, but this year it's just every morning it's been consistently below zero. And then we have a lot of snow cover. We had a storm a couple of weeks ago, and it's just makes it really challenging. But we have heaters. I keep all the water in the barn, and we have heaters in every bucket. But when it's that cold, they still freeze over. So I'm out there breaking the ice a few times a day, making sure that they have access to clean water all the time. And it's just added challenges with your hoses freezing. The equipment doesn't want to start. The tractor doesn't start when it's below zero, and the fuel gels up, and there's all sorts of problems that go along with the cold, and it's been a challenging winter for sure. But yeah, I get up early, go out, do my rounds in the dark, of course, with a headlamp on, because the daylight is so short this time of year. Um, I go to work, come home. When I get home, it's start doing the same rounds again, making sure everybody's got water, ice is cleared from everything, putting hay out, and then probably fixing whatever needs fixing as far as equipment goes. And I usually finish the day with my headlamp on as well, and I'm in the house whenever I get done with everything.
His work, well, work for him is more of desk work now. It's with we deal with people during the day for day jobs, and then we deal with animals on the off time. So, Guy is at Amherst College is only 15 minutes from our house, and he's a director of all the trade shops. So it's conversations on projects and Zoom meetings and people dealings all day. And I think both of us feel that we'd rather deal with the cows than some of the things that we have to do on the day to day.
I usually can't wait to get home to do physical work for the rest of the day. I enjoy that.
Yeah, definitely. It's still stressful, but a different kind of stress, but maybe also a little bit more peaceful stress than the day job.
I think the most rewarding time of year is when it's a little nicer out, spring and summer. We'll have a long day at work, and we'll jump in the UTV in the evening and just drive out and park in the field and just watch the cows and watch the calves running around, playing, jumping, and to us that's probably the most rewarding part of it. And
for sure,
every winter, especially this one, I just look forward to April rolling around, knowing that the shows and for charities and everything start back up, and I look forward to calving season starts for us in April. So that's always a really exciting time of year to see the calves hitting the ground. I love to see the young ones get off their winter coat and see what they look like, and just watch them grow. And so we'll get there. A couple more months to go.
A couple more months, and you can hang up the headlight, hopefully.
Yeah, so the days are getting longer.
Well, Charlotte, you mentioned your mom lives pretty close by, and she's traveled to Texas with you before to the Horn Showcase. And then, Guy, you also mentioned how you grew up on a horse farm. How special is it to you all to have this kind of, and to your parents, to have this kind of multi-generational support around the farm?
Imagine managing your animals and updating your website without needing any tech experience.
That's exactly why we built Hired Hand software. It's designed for breeders, not web designers.
Upload animals, track records and new calves, update photos, all in just a few clicks.
Whether you're brand new or growing a multi-breed program, we make sure your online presence is easy, modern, and manageable.
Visit hiredhandsoftware.com and see how simple it can be to keep your herd and your website up to date.
I think it's great. Well, yeah, like you said, I horse farm, not too far from here. My weekends as a kid were spent all over New England at quarter horse shows. My father was big into showing horses, and I really got into it as much as he did. I always enjoy going for that ride, but just never took the time to get into it to the level that he did. He's going to be 90 this year. I'm fortunate to have both my parents are still here, and they come over often and visit, and they light up. They really love to see what we've done, and they're just amazed at what we've been able to do in the short amount of time we've been doing this. And he really enjoys coming over and seeing the animals and asking questions. And we've taken them to a few places as well. We took them to Virginia and to Bluegrass.
Yeah,
that was kind of exciting when we went to Bluegrass. When he found out that we knew Bob Loomis, he knew Bob Loomis from quarter horses. Or knew okay, actually had a chance to meet him. He was really surprised to hear that he knew him. And he's going to be there, and he's going to be judging, so I can introduce you. And I did, and the two of them had a great conversation, and he was just thrilled that he got to meet Bob Loomis. So
the amount of people that have come onto our farm to learn about longhorns and just to start their own herd, whatnot. I feel like we've expanded what I would call our family significantly because they we have we do stuff with people who call and want to see a cow. If it's a restaurant that wants to have our beef in the restaurant, I ask them to bring their whole team here. And because I think a waitress who's tried a bird and has seen the cows and how they're raised is going to do a much better job than just having a menu that says a farmer's burger. And then UMass College, 15 minutes from us flat, and they have an ag program. So every year they come here with a whole bus full of students in the ag program. And it's really cool because they'll challenge the kids. If we have a project that we want to do and we're not sure what it looks like financially, if it's going to work out or not, the professor will actually teach the students to go through the whole process and work the numbers and such and map it all out for us. And then they come here and present it. And they ask all kinds of questions. We put them right out into the fields with us working and let them do the hands-on stuff and really experience what it's like to be longhorns. So some students call right away when they get to UMass and they want to come here and work on the weekends or they want to hang out on the farm. And so we've had kids here that are not ours, but they've been here for Easter dinner or they come over just to have dinner during the week. And I love that additional family that we've picked up.
Have any of those, how many years have you been doing that with those students?
UMass, I think it's been 4 years. This would probably be the fifth.
4 or 5,
Yeah.
So not quite long enough for those students to maybe get out on their own and purchase their first longhorn and maybe start their own herds. Not quite old enough yet.
One of them, although he hasn't purchased a longhorn, I think he was the first one that we met, and he was probably a senior maybe when we met him. He called us out of the blue wanting to come see if we had any work on the farm, just wanted to learn. So he came out and we just sort of hit it off with him and connected, and we stay in touch with him. He went on to complete his master's degree. He's got a good full-time job now. He's his farming is more into growing tobacco and corn and things like that. But he comes over and helps us out all the time, stays in touch on a regular basis, and comes and visits and helps us, helps me make hay, and he just loves working the cows and everything. And I think he plans on maybe getting some cows in the future, but it's just it was a neat connection to make that we stay in touch.
Yeah.
Well, you had your first futurity last year. What made you want to have a futurity? I know you said earlier that you really fell in love with the futurity, the whole atmosphere of it all, and everything, the knowledge that you gained from doing it. One, what made you want to do it? And two, after you decided to do it, were you thinking, why did we decide to do this? This is so much.
It was a lot. That was our summer. Like we really dedicated our time to it in every detail that we could think of, and we utilized what we learned on the road to apply it to our futurity. And the reason why behind it, I really do like the futurities, but I also realized that part of our goal was to increase the longhorn population on the East Coast, like the Northeast. So if we just keep having people buy a few cows and they have these small herds, but they don't get to do anything with them, I don't feel like that's really nurturing the industry. If you can get them to buy a couple cows, one thing, but I think getting them to come back, getting them to participate in a show, that's going to keep them going. And for us, that's part of our drive. When we go to Legacy, that's like the kickoff of the season for us, and all this negative stuff that you get through the winter, it kind of just rejuvenates you and you have fun. You're like, okay, we're in it again for another season. And I really wanted people to, at first, the cows that we were bringing back, sometimes we would be at a sale and there'd be a good cow that was being sold in it. Like Texoma was a good sale for me with this concept. We'd go there and it was Dale Hunt and Bob Loomis and their cows dominated that sale. And most of the people, my opinion was that most of the people in that area did have a lot of those genetics already, but we didn't. On the Northeast, we didn't really have a lot of those genetics. There are not a lot of people traveling back and forth to bring these animals. So if there was something that we liked and it didn't, maybe I didn't need this cow. I'm not sure I could really say I needed something like a cow, but They didn't really need it. And I'm like, this is a good cow. Like someone will have a good experience with this cow. We would buy it because I want people up here, if they're going to get into the industry, I want them to have excellent cows to start with. And ideally, I want to see them in the futurities and know that we help them get to something, to win something. That happened to us at um, East Coast. We sold SDR Lucy. She was actually a cow that we bought at the Texoma sale. And we kept her for 2 years, and we kept her for 3 years, and 2 of those years she gave us heifers, and we kept them. And then we decided to sell her. She had the best Jeremiah calf that we've seen from her and from him at that time, and we sold her. And it was really exciting to see them win the futurity with that heifer. And that is something that it takes a lot of effort and work and willingness to let something go and hope someone does something great with it.
Well, and not only just when you have the futurity, it's not only them just buying the cow, right? But like when they go through the whole futurity process, they maybe learn and understand a little bit more about the different characteristics of Longhorns. So they, can play with breeding or be more educated, when they do their breeding and stuff.
We have a lot of people local to us that we had sold to, and we always try to tell everybody, you got to go check out these sales and these shows, and nobody wants to make that 6-hour drive to Pennsylvania or the 8-hour drive to Virginia, and we understand that. So that was part of wanting to do it here, was just like be able to bring an event that people in this area will be able to go to easily, and also make it so that the other people that are serious about it will make that longer 6 or 8-hour drive that we always do. And I think it worked well, and I think we had a really good turnout. But yeah, back to the other part of it, it was a ton of work. When we first talked about doing it, we actually went to a couple of different facilities in our area to see if we could rent places there to do it. And the dates, I think, were the biggest problem. Just the dates really weren't working out with what we wanted to do. So we looked at our place. We were standing in our barn. I think it was last year in the winter, and we're like, you know what? Like, we could do this here. We could make this happen. I knew there was a lot of changes I had to make and things to be able to accommodate everything. And that's what we spent the whole summer doing and getting ready.
The Eddie Wood sale was happening in January, but we knew we weren't going to make it. And so what we did instead was we invited anybody who had interest in cows, bought cows, or anything cows. We invited them all here, and we hosted an Eddie Woods viewing party. We just put out a ton of food, and at that moment, I'm like, house is full.
And we watched it live on Hired In.
Yeah, we did.
Awesome.
And it was, our house is full of people that I would want to spend more time with. Like, this is really fun. And these people, some of them were brand new. They'd never bought cows. They were just interested. So they got to see, like, oh, wow, you can bid on a cow from Massachusetts in Texas right now. And you can network with people and get it home. And it was a really cool experience. And then we had our branding party because after that, we called like a couple of people who had more cows with us, like Andy Brooks and Emma and Liam. And we were thinking, this is like, we should do the futurity. Like, we probably have enough people now to do this. And then we had our branding party, and we had 9 trailers with cows lined up to brand their cattle. And we do a branding party every year, and it's in March. So it's not the coolest time of year. Well, it is freezing cold actually, but it's not like come out and together. You have to have some grit to be at that branding party because it can be pretty cold. But after the branding party, we had a few couples that stayed, and we walked through the barn. We're like, think we can do this. And we both, I think, put in so much effort, but we also could never take credit for it 100% on our own. The people that we were surrounding ourselves with, they just showed up. They showed up, and we had, how many people worked the back on that day?
I think we had like 14 people in the back. So I think we had a good time. We knew not a lot of our back crew had a lot of experience. So we just threw back there knowing that the more people we have back there, better it will go. And it went very smooth. They did a great job. They figured it out, and they kept things moving. Like, we didn't want that downtime where we're sitting there waiting for an animal to come into the ring. We had the staging area set up throughout the alleyway, and they did a great job. But it was a lot of work.
Yeah. Then the food too. Like we wanted people that came here to experience the food in New England in the fall. So it's like everything pumpkins and squash and all that. It was just really good. The kids did smoke. They smoked turkeys that we had raised. They put eye round on a spigot, and we did a smoked brisket. And the night before we did burgers and clam chowder. And then Andy's family won Massachusetts best ice cream. So they came down with their ice cream and served ice cream. And then Isaac and Ashley have a farm in Connecticut, and they are a great example. They bought one cow from us, and on the day of the futurity and every single thing we host here, they always show up, and they are just they're incredible. I'm really happy to call them friends, and it's the whole group that we've gotten to know up here. It's been pretty cool.
The most
Cool.
nerve-wracking for charity was the fact that being our first one, we had no idea how many people were going to come. We talked to a lot of people about it, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna come," and then of course there's a deadline, and I'll never forget this. 2 days before the deadline, I think we had 12 animals signed up, and I think most of them were ours. So we were kind of freaking out about that, and then 2 days later, I kind of thought I was hoping to get 60 animals. I was going to be happy if we had 60 entries. By the time Sunday night rolled around and the deadline passed, we had 79 entries. And that we were completely full. That was actually for the pens that we had set up full. And I guess the scary part of that is everybody that came seemed to really enjoy themselves. We got a lot of great feedback on it. Everybody had a good time and complimented everything. And everybody said they would plan on coming back. And then the following weekend, of course, we went to Kentucky for the Millennium, and it was an overwhelming amount of people that we ran into that said, "Oh, we didn't make it to your event, but we heard it was so great. We're definitely coming next year." And I'm immediately thinking, "Oh, like how are we going to accommodate a bunch more entries for next year?" Well, we'll make it happen. We are going to do it again this year because it was a great time, and it'll be not as much work for us because a lot of the things are kind of set up. We've done it once, so we kind of have an idea of what to do and how to make it go smoothly.
Well, from the people that I spoke to after Year for Charity, they all said, every last one of them said they had a fantastic time. The food, I mean, the people that you had there, the animals that were there, but then also the time of year. They really enjoyed getting up into your neck of the woods for the fall.
And we made it so that a lot of people too, and we know they were traveling far to come up here, and it's a great time of year to visit the Northeast. So a lot of people, we had their animals, were able to stay here for a few days or a week, and we took care of them as they went out. We did some out to Maine, some out to Vermont, went out to the coast of Massachusetts, and that worked really well. And I think they were excited to be able to do that, make the trip up here to add a little vacation time to it.
So earlier, we've talked a lot about you building the Longhorn breed there in New England. How has having a website enabled you, I guess, or helped you educate your customers and promote your cattle and even just tell your story to the people that aren't familiar with Longhorns?
For us, it's really helpful when you're talking to someone, and it's a pretty common phone call for us at the end of the day, like after dinner, a phone call with a new breeder or an existing breeder. I mean, those are those conversations, and we love to have them. But if it's a new person that's interested in buying cattle, I like to show them, go to the website and stand educating them, but also promoting your cow. But I'm like, look at this cow, and this is what I like about it. Me, and we're keeping this daughter, or I sold the daughter, I'm keeping them on. Anything like that we can point out to the breeder, I think or a prospective customer is so helpful. You can't argue with the layout of the websites. I think that the way that all the Longhorns get listed with all the same data, it's very clean and very informative. I think it's really helpful for people to be able to see how serious the Longhorn breed is taken when you have that kind of layout to display your cattle. I think it's been huge for us. We do a lot on Google as well and on Marketplace, and it's interesting. They're not Marketplace, but Craigslist. So many people, when you ask them where they started with their Longhorns, Craigslist. And
that's true.
think that's great, and I don't underestimate the power of Craigslist. We always have an ad on Craigslist, and
But, sorry, a lot of times people will reach out on a Craigslist ad and say, "Oh, what do you have for sale?" And it's really nice. I can just kind of send them the link to our sale page,
Yeah.
and kind of send every single individual picture and all the information. It's all kind of right there.
Yeah.
I know some people like to list the sale price for their animals that they have for sale, and some people don't. What is your preferred method?
We usually list them. Right now, I just updated our sale page fairly recently. Put some other animals on there. I prefer to put pricing on there, except the ones that we have planned to consign. If they're going into a sale, then I don't usually price on those.
I think putting the pricing too helps avoid like tire kickers that might be looking for a $500 cow. That's just not what we have. And then there's plenty of places to find that, but that's just not what we have. And I think it can help the value of it by putting the price tag on there. And I think we fluctuate because the cow might be at 5,000, but then she's firm to bred to the box office, so that or whatever it might be. But I feel like we tend to change the pricing pretty frequently. Wait, I don't know if a couple months is frequent, but I think I think for everybody, the value of your cattle depends on the breeding status in so many different variables.
Well, so since you've had Longhorns for quite a few years now, is there any advice, or maybe give us 2 pieces of advice for people who are considering getting Longhorns, or maybe those people who have just gotten their first Longhorns? What would you say to them?
Just say go and to visit as many places and volunteer your time to help people that are experienced with these of vaccinations or preg tests or anything. Go in look at someone's facility, but if you actually get the opportunity to battle with them, you get to understand the why behind the setup and such. And I feel we always invite people, come on over and like bring your boots and your working gloves because we want you to get in there and learn it. But we went to Jimmy Jones and we went to help with Jimmy Jones's herd in August in Alabama. That was a lot. That was one of the hardest days I've ever experienced, but it was amazing to work with Christine and John and Terry and Tammy were there, and of course Jimmy. So you got to hear both of them talking about the different ways that they do vaccinations. Like they do this vaccination is always on the left side of the neck, and that one's always on the right. And I'm like, that's actually really simple, but that's great. They're able to see if they're getting bumps or lumps or whatnot, and I was really helpful. And we got to, you just learn from experienced people and you get to use the pens, the holding pens and such, and you see what works and what doesn't. But we have picked up so much, and that really contributed to the redesign and reconfiguration of our holding pens so many times. And I'd say your setup is so important. When someone comes and they said, well, I want to buy cows, but I'm going to do my setup first. Can you teach me what I need to know? That makes me take that buyer so much more seriously. That's Rob Gould out in Beverly, Massachusetts. He came in a few times to just check out, and he'd drive 2.5 hours to help us work cows, to learn how to do it before he brought the cows home.
Yeah, that's really neat. That'd be my advice. I'd say do your homework, and all of those things. We had a young couple that wanted cows, and they came out and visited. They were 2.5 hours away, and they came out and visited us, I think, 3 or 4 times, and they were studying our website, looking at all the different animals. They were unsure, and they're just asking questions, and we would spend hours on the phone with them at night, and we didn't mind at all. I love the fact that they were doing their homework, and they came out and they to the branding party. And they wanted to get right in there. You know, they brought the gloves and their boots, and they wanted to be just hands on. And they're in there, and they're planning, and they're just heavily involved. And that's how you learn. And I think that's and they ended up buying some really nice cows from us, and they started a nice little herd. And so it was just nice to see people do that, because it's a lot of times people just dive in and regret some of the decisions they make early on.
We do. We had one. You didn't have like we didn't know what we were buying. We were just so excited to get them. We were just bringing cows home and bringing cows home, and thank God we had a beef program because we don't know what we would have done otherwise.
And I think visiting the ranches of the, if you're going to buy cows from somebody, I think it's important to visit their ranch and just see their herd, spend some time out there. We love bringing people here because our animals are very calm and docile. Our disposition is really important for us, and we won't. Occasionally you'll get one that's a little standoffish or a little flighty or a little crazy. We won't sell that animal to somebody else and pass that problem along. And we want people to know that the animals that are here are calm, gentle, right out of your hand.
I think most people in the industry are honest people, and you can call them and ask them about the animal that you're looking at it. I always tell people, like, you're buying your seed stock because you can't start with your own animal. So what you should find stuff that you really like and want to reproduce it, because it won't be your breeding at minimum 10 months, right? Everything is seed stock in the beginning. And it's so fun to see 10 of them, but if you had just 3 of them and they're all better, you're not going to be sorry in years when they've all doubled and tripled. Right.
Well, it's great that you take the time and have the patience to answer all of the new questions from new people. And I mean, even breeders who have probably had cattle for a few years, like you said, you went down to Jimmy Jones's and you learned some things from him and Terry, and that's after you've had cattle for a while. So it's great that you're able to take that knowledge and then even pass it on, to newer people in your area. So what's next for Cote Cattle Company? What do you have planned in the years ahead?
We're buying a bunch more camels for this paternity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we enjoyed the charity hosting that. We want to keep that going in the near future. It was a great success. We enjoyed it. Enjoy, having everybody here and bring up everybody up that we see everywhere else to this part of the country. They get to experience this, and so we want to keep that going, and we want to just keep improving our herd and through careful breeding, we just keep bettering the quality of the animals that we have.
I think for me, it's getting more. The paternity was. I definitely had a couple sleepless nights thinking about it because I was blending my 2 worlds, which was the Longhorns and then like my medical and dental. Like for fun for our sponsorship, the majority of the sponsorship came outside the industry, which was important to me. That was a goal that I had for myself. I really wanted to bring outside be able to do really good prize money. So for me, that is definitely be able to get to 8 states. I want to make that even better and do better prizes. Just keeping it in the industry, because if the money from the breeders keeps going into the shows, that's money that comes from being able to buy cattle. So, and I love bringing sponsors outside of the industry into the show because you never know who's going to be the next breeder. You don't, right? If the breeders that you think of 10 different breeders that are already in the industry and what they do for a living, what their careers are, there's so many ways. So I worried a little bit, but this is going to be full of dentists and doctors. How's this going to go? What am I doing?
It worked really great. We have a lot of dentists and doctors here, and they still talk about it every time we see them. What a great time they had, and I can't wait till next year to come back.
Our catalogs, like dentist, cow doctor. It was funny. So one of the cool things is the people who sponsored this spinning bull they took ownership of it. They were like, how did ours do? And they wanted pictures, and they put it on their social media and on their websites. So I feel like in another way, it's helping the industry as well, because the marketing just kept going on. It was pretty fun. And we did T-shirts for the event. We've done that for all of our branding parties. So you just see that stuff carry on, and it's pretty cool. So those are my goals, just to keep it going, I guess, and try not to take too much out of the industry, just put as much back into it as we can.
Well, if people are looking for you, they can find you online at CoteCattleCompany.com. Thank you both for sharing your story about your ranch, the futurity that you're starting, everything that you're doing. This has been such a powerful example of how family, land, legacy, and community have come together, and how the Texas Longhorn can thrive and survive anywhere when they're raised with care and intention. Thank you both.